Good.
It's 12:02. My name is Bill Powers, and I'll be the room monitor for this session. I'd like to introduce Dorothy. Dorothy Morgan is a master professional astrologer and personal consultant, also an astrology teacher and lecturer, and intuitive. She began studying astrology in the summer of 1988 and has been teaching for over 17 years and a full-time practitioner since 2007. During lectures and private sessions, she uses a creative, holistic, and optimistic outlook, and it is her intention to give you an insightful and inspiring experience, as well as helping you to make informed, good choices based off your astrological signature. I'd ask you to remain on mute, except if we have time when Dorothy is taking questions. Otherwise, you can put questions addressed to Dorothy or me into chat, and make sure that she sees them during the question and answer period at the end. Now, Dorothy, you have the floor.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. So
Hello.
everybody needs to mute themselves soon. All right. So thanks for being here. This is exciting. I actually have presented to this group up in Maine a while ago. And so, but not this subject matter. So today, we're going to talk about the eclipse. We had an eclipse yesterday. Hands up, who saw it? Did anybody get to see it? I know I didn't either. I was so disappointed. I get up early. I'm only a half a mile from the ocean where I live here in New Hampshire. And yesterday was my birthday as well. So that's a powerful, thank you. I'm almost 60, I'm getting closer to retire, but not with this. Anyways, so the eclipse, it was clouded, and I didn't bring the right glasses to see it, but it was beautiful, and the energy of it. We're going to talk about that today, and how to use it. And we have other eclipses coming up, and we're going to work on that. But eclipses are powerful, and even though it was just yesterday, I'm going to share my screen. Even though it was yesterday. Let's see if I'm going to pop this up properly and open this up. The energy of it remains with us for quite some time. So there we go. I need to make everybody else minimum so I can see what I'm looking at here. So here, I'm just going to have a few slides up, but I'll be doing a lot of talking about these energies. So some of the astrology and the energy that's going with it. So today, the solar eclipse that we had yesterday, and of course this is the Eastern time zone. It was at 6:53, but the actual physical eclipse, the astrological eclipse, was this time. The physical eclipse was about an hour before that. It's just a little difference between the astrology and the astronomy, and I don't want to get into the science of that. Some of you might even know it, but so that's when we celebrate the eclipse, right? So in an eclipse, a solar eclipse is a new moon. And astrology-wise, with all of this, we have Mercury retrograde. It was connecting to Neptune. I'm going to tell you what it all comes to, how it all comes together in our talk today. So in astrology, when we have a new moon, and again, an eclipse, that alignment, sun, moon, earth, is powerful and strong. And so eclipse new moons especially are important to pay attention to. New moon every month, of course, but this one is important. We have between 4 and 7 eclipses every year. Now we have this annual, this one that's yearly. I can't say the word for some reason. But we do have at least 4, and they come in pairs. And like in 2020, we had 7 eclipses, but in a year's time, if you went from December to December, we actually had 8 eclipses in 2020, and eclipses usually are game changers, powerful game changers. They propel the world forward in a lot of ways, and we all know what that has looked like, and we still have a lot of things going on with last year's eclipses. But this one in the sign of Gemini, so this is the first one we've had in Gemini in a while as a new moon eclipse. The last time we had this exact eclipse was 19 years ago. So they have a cycle, a Saros cycle that happens every 19 years. So 19 years ago, we also had this eclipse, but there are other things with the eclipse then that are different now. So an eclipse in the sign of Gemini, the energy of Gemini, that zodiac sign of Gemini represents communication and information, right? Awareness around contracts that we make, mental agreements, even mental stimulation, kind of like today, right? In this whole weekend, there is a lot of communication. There's a lot of information in the 3 days that this event's going on. I mean, the content is immense. There is so much happening for everybody. What a perfect weekend, whether whoever planned this knew it or not. I think you guys have it this time of year anyways, but this is going to be so much information, and there's a lot involved since everything is still online. There's always a lot involved. Even if we were meeting in a central location, people would still have to be traveling here. So this time of year is Gemini time of year anyways. But the events and the information that you gather over this weekend especially is important to keep those notes nearby. It's important, especially over the next 3 years, because every new moon starts a 3-year lunar gestation cycle. And I'm not going to get into that too much, but trust me that it is more powerful than just the monthly cycle of the moon. That in and of itself is nice, and that's our monthly cycle. But when we start a new moon, every new moon starts a new 3-year timeline. And when we start with an eclipse, it creates more of a dynamic focus. So in this time, over this weekend, especially with all the information that you all watching this and even recording later, watching the recordings later, the same goes true. Pay attention to some of the things, really pay attention to some of the things that resonated with you over this weekend. Listen, take notes. There are some other things I'm going to talk about throughout the lecture that might make things a little foggy. So I want you to make sure that you don't let things slip by getting those notes and writing those notes out and saying, I am going to follow up on this, or at least putting it somewhere. So later on, a few months from now, you'll go, oh, that's right, I wanted to do that. And really research and dig into that. So that's what this eclipse is. And then we're going to talk about Mercury retrograde. That's coming up just shortly. And he is retrograde right now. But astrology-wise, this is what the eclipse looked like. A whole new level of learning and gathering of information. 19 degrees of Gemini, meaning that we value the information that we're receiving at this time. There's been a lot of misinformation. There's always misinformation throughout human history. We're never quite sure what we're getting is truth or not. But the point is, with this eclipse, it is so important for us to focus on, what it is that as an individual, what is it that I value in the information that's coming to me? Because we can get into overload of information if we're not careful with a whole bunch of other things that are going on that we'll get to next. I think I'm jumping ahead. Am I jumping ahead? Let me look. I got notes. No, I'm not. I want to make sure. Oh, I can't tell what slide I'm on with this. Oh, I can. Here we are. So here we are. That's what I wanted. Thank you. I was sliding too far ahead. Here are eclipses. Now, in regards to eclipses and the strength of them. Now, I know a lot of you are dowsers and a lot of you work with ley lines, and I don't physically work with those, but I know they exist and I know they're there. And when it comes to the astrology, I also understand that throughout the world, an eclipse is somewhere. They're not all visible. Of course, the lunar eclipses are visible anywhere on the planet, as long as it's nighttime in your area. But the solar eclipses are the ones that we follow a lot because, again, it's the sun being blocked by the moon, and the path of where it's visible especially, you know, the full 100% path is very important for us to pay attention to, because it said where the eclipses are, there are changes in the land. There are changes in governments. There are shifts in weather and weather events, especially. And that's usually, it's more intense on the lines that you see here in front of us. Yesterday's eclipse was the one way up here in Canada. So I know, you know, I'm here on the seacoast of New Hampshire. And even though it wasn't visible because of the clouds and I didn't have the right glasses, I probably would have been able to see it. It was just a small portion. It looked like the bottom quarter of the moon, of the sun, was still visible because of our distance. But really where the shadow of the totality of the eclipse is important. So I can't make this picture any bigger. But that area in Canada, there would be, I don't know how populated it is the further north you go, but there would be something that is going to shift in that area. And usually, sometimes it's right away. Within a couple of weeks, there's weather or there is some sort of, you know, fundamental change in government or something. But I don't know Canada well enough to speak to their politics. I don't pay attention to my own half the time. I don't want to. Too much information for this Gemini. But that's the important thing to look at. But we were able to see this eclipse, even though it is not the path across for us here in New England, all right? Now, we're going to back up in the last clips that the United States have. I know I'm focusing on just the United States and North America, because if you look at the whole world, we can go through all of the eclipses and just see where they were, and you're going to see government upheavals, you're going to see bad weather. This one here in August 2017, you know, they called it the Great American Eclipse. It started up here in the west, the Northwest, and went straight through the country. And then, of course, we had hurricanes pretty quickly after that did a fair amount of damage there. But I mean, that's normal for this area of the United States to have hurricanes. And then another one came in just a few days after this. It came in to Texas and went up and took a curve and really hit this whole area very heavily, especially Texas. Now, the next eclipse, which we have many of them. Again, we had one on May 26, we had one on June 10, we have two, one in December and one in November. So they happen in pairs every 6 months. And then once in a while, like I said earlier, they sprinkle more in. But these are the solar eclipses. So the next solar eclipse that's actually going to be in the United States is this one, and it starts in the Northeast, actually up here in the tip top of Canada. And it comes right through Maine and New Hampshire and just all the way through here and down into Mexico. And it will be crossing. And that is April 8th, 2024. They're already talking about it on the local news, saying, oh, we saw this one yesterday, and now this other one's going to come through in the 2024, and it'll be a total eclipse moving right through this area. So there will be some significant changes. It's in April. We'll probably have a blizzard. I don't know. You never know. Something will happen, but we'll take a look. Now, the thing is that they are going to cross right in this area. Now, that's hard to see where that is, and I had a hard time. Once I tried to expand this, it didn't expand well. But we have, let me see. It is... I wrote it down, I swear, but it's on the next slide. Anyways, well, my notes are incomplete. There it is. This is Illinois and Missouri. This really, right smack in the middle of it is St. Louis, is right smack in the middle of this X. So even though 2017 to 2020 is a 7-year time span, it still tells me that, you know, a lot of this in area, and right in here, of course, 2017, a lot of weather, a lot of droughts. If I was to, you guys were mentioning it earlier when we first started, a lot of the droughts and stuff. So I'm wondering if this is some of the areas where the droughts would be. So this point in this area is going to be quite active. Now, if there are ley lines and things like that that run underneath the total, this shadow of the sun, then those ley lines will be activated. And I'm not sure what, as a dowser, you would do with them. You'll have to tell me. I don't know. I'm curious if somebody has that. We can talk about it later. So there we have that to look at. And then, of course, any weather situations, any government, Texas is always talking about leaving the union, and Texas is getting hit a couple times in here too. The other eclipse that impacts the United States is October 14th, 2023, also a solar eclipse, and that crisscrosses right here in the lower half of Texas and really close to the Mexican border. So there's a lot of government stuff that goes on here and a lot of really bad weather. So we have all of those going on. So Suzanne, yes, absolutely. So Suzanne asks in the chat, can eclipses also mean something good will happen, or is it always forbade something is beneficial? So what it does is right now I'm just focusing on the weather, and the eclipses really helping us, or not forcing us, but really encouraging us to make important changes. Now, when we look at eclipses on a personal level, yes, they also do the same thing for us on a personal level. They are wherever they're going to show up in your astrology. That's a wheel. Wherever eclipses happen to end up in that area of life for you is going to be highlighted. So you will naturally, whether you even know about astrology charts or not, you will naturally be focusing on those specific things. And I have a wheel at the very end, the last slide I have. If I had time, I was going to show you that too. So that is a piece of what's going on in regards to where the eclipses are over the next few years. And again, if you were able to see this eclipse, then even though you may not live up in this area in Canada, if you were able to visibly see it, then that would be important for us in that area. Even if can't visibly see it, but you were able to, if the conditions were better, you would have been able to see it. So focusing in on our communication, Gemini, receiving information, Gemini, and, we're getting out and about again more here in this area. Not every state's that way, but I think the United States is pretty much close to being full open. So we're able to start being more social. That's Gemini and things like that. The more personal stuff, again, comes if you focus on where it is specifically in your own astrology. Okay. I think that's where we'll go with that. Now, with this eclipse, the planet Mercury is retrograde, and it was just like one little number. Here, I'll go back a couple. Here's what it looks like when we have an eclipse. The numbers are the same for the sun and the moon. And then we have Mercury in its retrograde phase this year, and it is in the air sign, and it's right here with the eclipse. So over the next week and a half to 2 weeks, as Mercury retrogrades and then comes back and connects to where the eclipse is, we're going to be reminded of the eclipse. It's like leftovers in your fridge. They don't last that long, but like leftovers in your fridge. You're going to go back and forth, and you're going to review a lot of different things throughout the next few weeks. So here is Mercury retrograde, shifting gears a little bit, but just know that the strength and the power of this eclipse and others, is also engaging with what I'm going to tell you next, which means it is highlighted. And it's more than just Mercury retrograde. But in this year, 2021, when Mercury does make its retrograde, happens 3 times a year, just that optical illusion of where we are in the solar system with him. He retrogrades every year in an air sign. So in January to February, it was Aquarius. So the theme is air, and that means thinking, processing, information, technology, breaking away from old patterns, gathering information, working with partnerships and cooperation with others. So these are the dates of the 3 eclipses for this year. Again, all in the air signs. So we really are focusing on content and information. And again, this eclipse and Mercury retrograde that we're currently in, Mercury retrograde started June 29th and goes to January 22nd, just after the summer solstice. And then it's going to take a few weeks for it to get back to its own sign. Flip my page back to where it originally started. This is what it looks like, just for, a graphic, just so you can see. This is where Mercury started in January 1st, this little red dot right here by my mouse. He goes forward, then he retrogrades, and then he goes forward. So that's Aquarius. See the distance? These lines are how far back it goes. When we get down here to right now, it's tiny. Look at how small that retrograde area is, and here is it in the fall. And then this is where it ends. Mercury moves, even with it being retrograde. Actually, it laps the sun like 3 times a year. But from our perspective here on Earth, because we're moving as well around the sun, it moves a little more than, it takes a little less than a year to go all the way around the sun. So Mercury moves quicker than the sun. The sun is the stable point. So that's what we have with that. That's just what it looks like with the astrology. So a lot of power and a strength with this eclipse, especially with Mercury retrograde. He's going to be in the sign of Gemini, again, highlighting the fact of communication and information, May 3rd, all the way until July 11. It'll take that long for Mercury to finally exit the sign of Gemini. He likes the sign of Gemini, by the way, because it's the sign that he's actually in charge of, that one in Virgo. And with the retrograde this year, he's still spending 24 days retrograde, which is approximately the amount of time. He's 21 to 24 days, he's retrograde 3 times a year. But this retrograde, like I just showed you in that graph, he's only moving 8 degrees. And that's really tiny, and that's really small. The last one, he moved 15 degrees. So he's going half the distance in the same amount of time. That is hyper focus. That's what that means. That means we need to focus deeply on what it is we're being asked to reevaluate. When Mercury is retrograde, usually he moves fast and furious. He's just that information guy that just goes and goes and goes. But when he is retrograde, we are being asked to take our time, to slow down, to reevaluate the information. You guys are doing great with this event during a Mercury retrograde, because it's not always easy for things to move quick and precise during a retrograde. But this one is very slow, and the eclipse is with it. So those of you in charge of this event, and even those of you who are here in a platform that you're not comfortable with or haven't known before, and you're working with it, perfect. A great way to use Mercury retrograde. Also, while it is in this retrograde, it's important that we learn to listen, and we learn to take our time, and we learn to pay attention, especially to our elders. Now, a little side note from the astrology. I have an oracle deck. I love it. It's called Native Spirit. I don't know if you can see it or not. And when I was creating this lecture, I wanted to pull a couple cards from it. And I did. And of course, these 2 cards came out. I didn't pick them myself. The first card that came out is called a talking stick. And if some of you may know what a talking stick is, and some of you may not. And then storyteller. They're both very, very Gemini oriented. Now, the Native American talking stick, if you are sitting with your family and with the chiefs and chieftains in your tribe, they had this decorated stick. Now the person who held it, no matter who they were, was the only one speaking, the only one telling their story, the only one telling their truth at that moment in time about whatever they were having their conversation about. Everybody else had to be quiet and listen. You're not allowed to talk until you held that stick. It was your turn. So in these gatherings, this is the way that everybody got to be heard. And with this strong eclipse, especially in the areas that you've seen that it highlighted physically, and with Mercury retrograde in the sign with the eclipse, that's exactly what it's telling us to do. It's telling us to make sure we speak our truth, make sure we take a lot of time to listen and to slow down and to allow that flow to be comfortable and to be easy for you. So when we hold that talking stick, and this is important if you're feeling the need for it, it could be that this is what this new moon, this solar eclipse is asking you to do. Maybe it's asking you to speak your truth and to be more authentic in your life, and to choose your words wisely. So good communication between people is important. Listening. The dialogue we heard between Fran and her husband when we were getting started was very Gemini and very sweet and cute. And that again is just like, and it was respectful. And that's what we're looking at when we're looking at all of this Gemini energy that is so very strong. Now we also, I'm not a political person, so I won't get political, but we are looking at this as well, because some of you guys are, I'm sure plenty of people are, and we're looking at, the information that we're getting. And is it enough? Is it truthful? Is it authentic? Now, that's like getting a drink of water out of a fire hose. That would be too much information. And one of the reasons things may feel a little wonky for us and unsure, while we have all of this, speak your truth, be slow, take your time, be honest, is that during this eclipse, this energy is at a 90-degree angle to the planet called Pisces, and Pisces, Neptune, in the sign of Pisces. What that means is we could feel a little confused and unsure about the information that we're receiving. All right. Now, that is in and of itself, we're not able to really clearly see what's happening for us. It's not necessarily going to be easy to see. But how can we use this? One of the ways that I think we can use it, a lot of people here are intuitive and psychic, and using the tools, your dowsing tools, whether it's pendulums or the rods. I've never figured out how to use those. I have a pair. They just spin. I'm not so good at it. But the pendulums, I have a few pendulums, and those are beautiful for me. Whatever dowsing tools you use, that is, in my opinion, the Neptune in Pisces energy. And using a tool like that is important for getting answers to questions or things that you feel unsure of. So that's a question. I'd love to know who uses those to ask questions and get answers regularly. You can put that in the chat if you like. Be curious to see how often. I just go to the Astrology and I pull my oracle cards. So that's a dowsing tool. I do have a pendulum, but when I ask myself my own questions, it doesn't necessarily answer me. I can't trust my own pendulum questions, but I can read my own chart. So I want you to, show me how, or if, or tell, or whatever, if that is something that you do. Mercury is going to be in this 90-degree angle with Neptune I know we're already in it, but it is up until the 15th and then it will come back. So basically we're going to feel it through the end of June. So we have this this opportunity to use our intuitive nature to know what we trust, no matter what information is being, we're being doused with. Use your tools to figure out how you want to find an answer to a question or process things. Okay, let's see. Mary says, I use the dowsing tools every day, both in my work and personally. Excellent. Margarita, I do use a pendulum daily. Awesome. And Susanna, I use my dowsing tools all the time. Nice. Yeah. I don't know if astrology is a dowsing tool or not, but it's definitely a tool. And again, I love my cards too. They help me just to, trust the energy of what's going on. And I do trust that too. I just read something that I like to read every day, and it's the Tao Te Ching. So I just read a verse every day, and it just helps me just to be in a more nice, calm alignment for myself. So that is a wonderful way to use it. This Neptune square, it is mutable square, meaning Gemini is a mutable sign, so mutable, pliable. I'm okay with shifting and changing. There's not a lot of fixed energy in this chart right now, which is good. And Neptune in Pisces is very spiritual, very psychic, very intuitive. All right. Let's move on. I might be talking faster than I might have lots of times for questions at the end. Oh, Elizabeth says, I also use a pendulum every day. So your info adds more dimension to my reality. Oh, okay, that's good. Yes, astrology is very analytical. There's no doubt about that. But you can be an astrologer and you can, just like any profession in this or any tool in this realm of things. I mean, you have to learn what you learn because there's certain meanings, but then you have to allow things to flow, and you need to allow that to happen. Because it's just really important for us. Yeah, that's my last slide, almost. So we will have time to work with the houses if we want, to look at where that is. Now that you might not know where that is. So if you don't know where this eclipse is going to happen in your astrology, because you don't know your astrology, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at nhastrologer.com. It's right down here. I have a little area there where you can contact me, and I'll get your birth info and all of that from you. Okay, so any questions before we move into the section of the different areas of the astrology, if that eclipse was in each different area? Franny, you going to ask a question? It looks like you're trying to unmute yourself. No? Okay. Somebody raised their hand. Any questions? Okay. Should I wait a little longer? We're figuring out our technology. There's a chat question. Okay. Okay. Would I unmute you? Bill, what do you think? Where's Geraldine? Let's see if I can unmute her. There she is. You have to unmute yourself, Geraldine. Where'd she go? You can't. Oh, I can't either. Huh. Okay. Can you type it in the question in the chat?
Oh, there we go. Now it's
there you are. Hi.
Okay. So it'll be easier for me to verbalize it because I don't know the proper terminology.
Okay.
So I do dowsing in my own little way.
Yep.
When you were talking about the
The what?
So when you're talking about the eclipse and everything's finished up in that group, 5 or 6 things.
Yep.
Right. So then, and you have your red line. And then when I started asking about if there's something I need to know, then it was pointing me to the groups. And I'm just looking at the numbers on there, 9 and 8. And then I was supposed to clear those. What does that mean? And if somebody's supposed to be clearing something in a specific spot there?
Mm. Well, this is a chart for the moment in time. But if you had your own chart out, we would just see where it is. So you were trying to clear the energy of the area of the 8th house and the 9th house. Is that how you said it?
Well, yeah, I think that's the right way to term it. It was just because I looked at the red line and then I said,
Mhm.
oh, is there something I need to know? And I got a yes. And and then it kind of
Got
picked
it.
off one by one different components in the 8th and the 9th.
Got it. So that would mean that they're in your personal astrology, which is not this, which is not what's up here.
Oh, okay. So that's where
Okay. But what that would tell me as just doing the two modalities together, it would tell me that if I was to look at your astrology, then I would go and I would look at those two planets. This one is the planet Jupiter, and that's the planet Saturn. And I would see what they're doing in your chart, where they are in the sky compared to what they're doing to your natal birth chart. And that would tell me where you're expanding, Jupiter, because Jupiter is expansion, and Saturn represents contraction and getting in alignment and rules, like the school teacher or the professor or the boss, somebody who is, really putting you, like, this is your job. This is what you need to do. So if you're needing to clear those, I would just see what's going on in those two areas of your chart. They're not really connected to the eclipse this time around, but that still doesn't mean that these guys aren't interacting with your chart somewhere, because they most likely are, if that was something that you pulled out of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to make an appointment. Thank
You
you.
could do that too.
No, that's it. It's very interesting. I
Perfect.
have an astrologer who's helped me out a couple of times, and it explains
Yeah.
a lot. And so there's still more story
Awesome.
here.
Awesome.
I'd
Awesome.
like to say something too when she's finished.
Okay. Hi, Linda.
Hi. So I'm an astrologer also, and
Awesome.
of course it's always nice to get an objective point of view.
Uh-huh.
I have 29 Gemini rising, so the eclipse pattern for this chart falls in my 12th house, where I
Yeah.
have Saturn at 10 degrees Gemini and
Mhm.
Uranus at 2 degrees Gemini.
Yeah.
And Neptune and Jupiter both fall in my, well, Jupiter's on the cusp of my midheaven, right
Yeah.
close on the ninth
Yeah.
house, and Neptune is in my 10th house.
Right. So it's almost a real similar setup to this.
Yes, so I
Real
was just
similar.
wondering.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the 12th house is, an ongoing issue in my life, of course, at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. So if just like, so we can that will lead us into what's next then. Wonderful. When you have an eclipse in, especially the new moon, and we were talking about the new moon, there are full moon eclipses and new moon eclipses. And the information we give with the new moon is when the moon is new, it's when we are getting ready and prepping for new, like planting seeds. And Linda, I'm going to mute you. There's just a little bit of background noise while I talk, but you can unmute you if you have a more question. There we go. With a new moon, the moon is dark, right? We can't see it for around 2 days, 48 hours before, 48 hours after. I mean, it's always give or take a little bit. But so the moon is dark at this point. But as a new moon, it's like taking a handful of seeds from last year and, your grandkids mixed them all up by accident or by fun. And so you're not sure what you're planting. You can't identify all of them, but you're planting some things, because this is the time you're supposed to plant some new seeds because you want something to grow. So you are planting them. This is what a new moon is. But we're doing it in the dark. It's just like gestation, the egg and the sperm, they come together in darkness. moist darkness. And that is what a new moon is like. And then when it happens in the 12th house, it is going to slowly over time bring something to the surface, because the 12th house is everything that's unconscious. It's our hidden skills and talents. It's things that we just have come in with, like even past life stuff, if if you believe in that. But otherwise, it's just those hidden things that we're unconsciously just holding in or responding to. That's the 12th house. So as a new moon happens in the 12th house, we are over the next, it could be immediately, or it could take the next time the moon comes around and triggers that. Could be when Mercury gets there. It varies from person to person. Something will come of this. Something will start to grow and open up just for you in that unconscious world. Again, bringing up a new hidden skill or an issue that you want to clear and finally be done with. And again, Gemini energy, meaning communication and information. So we're all getting information slowly over the next few months, and even till like the next 9 months and into the 3-year time frame, if you want to go the long game. And so allow that information to come up. So I will go to the next.
I wanted to mention,
Yes.
though, that the last eclipse, the lunar one, was
Mhm.
conjunct at 10 degrees. My my natal Saturn is at 9 degrees.
Right, right. And so a full moon eclipse brings an awareness, it's the completion and the awareness of anything that you had started with the new moon related to that one, which was 18 months before. So, because it's a 3-year cycle. So 9 month, 9 month, 9 month, 9 month. And so, the full moon eclipse on May 26th full moons bring awareness. And I'm starting to accomplish something, whether it's you're changing your career, retiring, stepping up to take responsibilities for something, it would be like that. Make sense? Okay. Oh, you're muted again. I didn't hear. There you
I'm
are.
saying I got what you said in terms of the concept, but in reality, it hasn't worked out that way.
Okay. Yep. And then we're isolating. So the thing is, there will most likely be other mitigating factors with other astrology planets and things doing different things that will give us more information that isn't just that. So that's astrology, it's a lot, I know, there's a lot of components. Usually it's not just one. We are isolating by talking about just a couple things in this lecture, but there's always a lot going on.
I agree, of course.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Linda. All right. Any more questions? Go ahead and just type them in the chat. And it looks like we got like 15 minutes. So I can go through these areas. So this is just what the wheel looks like divided into 12, but we all have charts and our charts all look different. And sometimes they can be confusing. So we started with the 12th house. And I'll go forward to the first. But if you also have it in, that eclipse, especially Mercury retrograde is going to be in there. So that also means that it's just adding to the component of information overload. How do I work this? Am I talking too much? Am I not listening enough? All of those things I've said. So in that 12th house, it also works through the unconscious things, working behind the scenes, spending time alone, devotion to others. So all of that is what would go on, and more things, of course. This is just a really quick glimpse. If the eclipse happens to be in the area called the first house, that's where we're self-aware, our awareness, just our outward appearance and our self-focus, how people just see us when they first meet, right? It's that type of place. So if that eclipse is in there, you might be overly chatty right now and spending a lot of time in communication. If we have it in the area of the second house, that's our personal possessions. It's Venus's natural home. So it's like our money, our possessions. it's how we use our skills and talents to earn a living, or if we're not earning a living, it's just how we're using our skills and talents, what we value and what we love. So if Gemini's in there, first off, you're going to love words, you're going to love information, reading, writing, communicating, all of that will begin a whole new little boost once we get past the Mercury retrograde, because again, it's gonna heighten that. I'll get to that chat in just a minute. Third house, it's Gemini's natural home, so it's just more of the same, communicating, thinking, our environment, so much. If you got it in there, you're probably in overload. I really suspect you would be in overload right now and needing a way to unplug. Yeah, that was me last night. It's in here. I'm a Gemini. All that eclipse stuff last night was just like, by the time I got to 8 o'clock, I was just completely exhausted because everybody wanted to talk and there's lots of fun things to talk about, but eventually you get overloaded. And that would be that way as well when you have it in that third house. If it's in your fourth house, of course, your roots, your family, your parent, your home life, your inner security, you know, how you nurture yourself. And so you're going to want to talk to your family, Gemini. You're going to want to share your truth with the family or whomever you live with or whatever that looks like. Or maybe you're making a new contract for a new home, which is, you know, signing a lease or signing, you know, mortgage paperwork. You never know. You take a second and look at the chat and we'll get to the next one. In general, how do you see the rest of 2021 or highlights for the next couple of years? Oh boy, next couple of years, that's a lot to talk about. I have not prepared anything to answer that question. The rest of the year will be more of this because the Gemini energy is very strong throughout the year because we have some other positions that are moving through there nice and slow. So a lot more with information. And I have another lecture. I'm not giving it here, but there's another recording that I did for you guys in case they needed to fill in a spot on Jupiter in Pisces in the sky with Neptune in Pisces. And to me, it feels like there is something else showing up, which we can't identify yet. I can't identify it. It's Pisces energy, meaning we can't see it. It's veiled. Now, is it the UFO stuff? It could be, but when that starts to leak, that leaks out every 6 months or so, and then they do nothing with it and they deflate it. It could be that. But there is some story, there is something going on globally. Generally speaking, there's something going on globally that we still don't have a clear view of, which that's not even an oxymoron, that's an understatement. We're not sure about a lot of things. So that's a loaded question, but that's the best I can do right now. All right. If we have it in our fifth house, this is the area of what we create, our passion, entertainment, how we play, the children we have, or, you know, what is fun to you? What is fun? And if you have the eclipse in there, that means Gemini is that sector for you. And, you know, I mean, you're going to love to do Gemini things. Local travel, seeing people. Last year must have stunk if you have Gemini in there. Hard to sit still when you have Gemini in this area because you're very passionate about Gemini things. Again, reading, writing, communicating, playing, having fun, being out and about. If it's in your sixth house, this area over here, that's the things that we do every day, our daily rituals and home, you know, our self-improvement and our health. So if you do have it in there health-wise, you want to make sure that you do exercises that are great for, you know, like cardiovascular, for like the lungs, the heart and the lungs. So what is that? Yeah, that's what it is, cardiovascular stuff. You want to make sure you have, for whatever your health level is, you want to do something in that regard. And you know, read up and do information. And then it can be just your work as an individual who has a job. This area is about what I do every day in my work. So if Gemini eclipse in there, you might be very busy at work. So you'll have to figure out how to, you know, sift and sort so you won't get overwhelmed. If it's up here in the seventh house, that's the area of our relationships any type of partnership, our marriages, you know, cooperation with others, arbitration, if you happen to be in a legal situation right now that needs arbitration. That Mercury retrograde just means, and the eclipse means you'll be going back and forth, but something new will come of it eventually. Now, if you know, in regards to partnerships and communication, if this isn't saying you have problems there, but if there is a communication issue, you will be able to start to work your way past that and actually and through it. So you're able to communicate better. Good to be able to communicate with your partner. That's number one. All the fun and the romance eventually slows down a bit. So you definitely need to be able to communicate with your partner. 8th house. Now this is what we circulate. It's our shared resources, you know, death, sex, taxes, that basic outline of the 8th house that a lot of people know about. But if that eclipse is in there, then it's also the area of transformation and rejuvenation and regeneration. So it could very well be that you need to redo something. Maybe it's time for you to check your will, make sure that's in order, or reevaluate it because you just want an interest. I'm not saying anything about anybody dying. I'm just saying that it's just time to, maybe it's time that you know that you want to make sure to do that. I don't have one. If I had the eclipse in that area, I would be going and getting that all taken care of so my kids don't have to do anything when the time comes. I'm only 61, so I'm still not thinking about it yet, but I should. Anybody should, honestly. So if you do have it in there, that might be something that you're already doing. If the eclipse is up here in that 9th house, that's the area of education, how we want to expand our horizons and explore the world. So this fantastic. You are going to be fun, curious. You're going to go. It's going to be philosophical shifts if you feel you need that. This might inspire that. You might really start to travel. This area, I mean, up until COVID, I don't know what the restrictions are because I'm not a global traveler, but it could be that you're able to finally do that now, or at least get the paperwork or whatever you need to get so you can get started on it. You might be very political as well because this area is the law. And if you're into policy, and no matter what politics, you know, whatever, even being, you know, a member of a group like this, you know, if you're part of the policy and creating of things, it could very well be that you're working on that too. If it's up here in the 10th house, that's your career area. So there could be some readjustments here. And again, when I say readjustments, don't think negative, because when an eclipse is in our charts, it is here to help propel us to move forward. It's really helpful to getting us out of our rut. Sometimes that doesn't feel comfortable, but the end result can be very fantastic. So look for the new opportunities in all of these areas. Because when there is change, there's meant to be change, right? Something is meant to happen in those areas. So how you want to achieve, there could be a change in what you're achieving in the world, what you're known for, whether you have a career or you're just, you know, you're part of a group, and the group is the next section, but you're the leader of something, all right? So it doesn't have to be, even if you're retired, whatever it is that is considered your career now. If I was talking to a teenager, their career at that point is school and learning. So whatever your career is right now. When it's over here in that 11th house, which is the last one, yes, at the 11th house, it's, you know, what our hopes and dreams, right? Friends and groups, goals, aspirations, selfless work. Selfless work is the 12th house. You know, somebody out here might be inspired to become an officer in this group or any other group that you're interested in. If you've got Gemini in there, you're probably already heavily involved in the groups that interest you, because these are our friends and these are the people that we have a lot in common with. One thing, you know, you're all dowsers in some way, but then you all have your own little interests, or personal interests, not little, but personal interests. The big interest with all of the people like in this group is that 11th house. So how you're working in a group conditions. And if that eclipse is there and that Mercury retrograde is in there, then you will be reevaluating that. You're figuring out, well, what does that look like for me now? How can I step up? Do I feel like stepping up? Maybe I feel like stepping back so I can have more personal time. Remember, you can make positive changes out of these things. And then again, we already talked about the 12 houses where we started. So let me get my recap here. So things do happen with the eclipses. Absolutely no doubt about it. There's no way around that, right? None whatsoever. When we have eclipses, oh, that's just my personal stuff. When we have eclipses, we need to look for the opportunity. Remember we have to put things down before we can pick something else up. So if you're feeling something is old and tired and it's had its lifespan is done, don't keep working with that. Just say, wow, thank you. I've learned what I want. I've used everything I can out of this, and put it down so you can free up space for when these new moon eclipses happen. And that's what this eclipse is about. So gathering that information, trusting your information, trusting what you hear, because that Neptune is really strong with these things. And we want to make sure that we're able to take this time. Don't fear Mercury retrograde. Don't fear the eclipses. We don't want to make any decisions or any choices out of fear ever. So make sure you check in with yourself on that one if it doesn't feel right. But because there's always a lot of negative information about Mercury retrograde, and it's just about an opportunity to take it slow, to rest, to let that person who's holding the talking stick talk and be honest to themselves. And so you can learn to listen. The next eclipse that we will have is November 19th, and it's a lunar eclipse. So that means it's a full moon, and that's 27 degrees of Taurus. And then the solar eclipse after that on December 4th will be at 12 Sagittarius, but that does not impact us here in the United States. So one question. All right, and Bill, okay, that's from Bill. Remember to join us at 7:30 this evening for Raymond Gray's keynote in room 1. So this room, awesome. You're gonna have a keynote speaker tonight at 7:30. All right, so if, are there any questions? I am complete. This is how you can find me all over the place. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, you know, all that social media stuff. All right, Mary Crawford. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everybody.
And